The betrayal of my unfaithful wife turned me into an online sensation and transformed her plan into public shame. As soon as the Southwest flight landed at Sacramento International Airport, Wes Hardaway pulled out his phone. "Hi, honey," he said cheerfully when his wife Marlene picked up. "I'm back from San Diego. The plane just landed, and I'll be home in an hour. Love you, bye." As he drove down Interstate 80 toward Fair Oaks, Wes, an accountant, thought about how much he disliked business trips. Though he didn't travel much, each trip lasted 2 or 3 nights, which he found tiring. His boss, Edith Norton, disliked travel even more, so Wes was the one who made the quarterly trip south to represent the Sacramento office. He hoped Marlene would be ready to start a family now that her freelance art business seemed successful, believing that working outside the home would make motherhood easier. Humming a classic rock song, Wes pulled into his driveway only to find the garage door opener wasn't working. Annoyed, he parked the car and walked to the front door, only to be shocked when his key wouldn't fit the lock. After several attempts, he rang the doorbell, but there was no response. He knocked and called out, "Hi, honey, it's me. Something's wrong with the lock. Can you let me in?" There was no answer. He knocked again, harder this time, and heard movement inside. Marlene's voice came from behind the door. "I changed all the locks and the garage code." "I don't understand. Let me in," Wes said. "No, you don't live here anymore," Marlene replied. "What do you mean?" "This is my home," Wes protested. After a pause, Marlene said, "Talk to the person behind you." Wes turned around and saw a man in a baseball cap walking toward him. Before Wes could say anything, the man handed him an envelope. "Wesley Hardaway, you've been served," the man said. "What's this?" Wes asked. "Your wife's petition for divorce and a temporary restraining order requiring you to stay 200 yards away from her." Stunned, Wes pounded on the door. "Marlene, we need to talk." A police officer approached with his hand on his holster. The man in the cap explained the restraining order to the officer, who turned to Wes and said, "Sir, you need to leave immediately, or I'll arrest you." Dazed, Wes nodded and walked to his car, under the watchful eyes of his neighbors. He drove away slowly, barely aware of his surroundings. Inside the house, Marlene let out a sigh of relief. "I did it," she thought. He never saw it coming. The next morning, Wes woke up in a motel room, confused and exhausted. He spent the day trying to make sense of what had happened and why. Unable to think of anything that could have caused Marlene's actions, he remained bewildered. The good news was that he had his shaving kit, but the bad news was that all his clothes were either dirty or wrinkled, and he couldn't go home to change because he was locked out. Even worse, the restraining order meant he'd likely need a lawyer just to buy a clean suit. Glancing at the clock, he realized it was too early to call a law firm. Hungry from skipping dinner the previous night, he decided to eat first. He found a fast food place open early and grabbed breakfast while making a list of his tasks. The first thing on his list was to call his boss and explain his absence. Edith Norton, a micromanager, wouldn't be pleased. He hoped to leave a voicemail, but she answered on the second ring. Wes initially blamed his absence on a cold, but Edith didn't believe it, forcing him to confess the truth. She showed no sympathy, insisting that he must have done something to provoke his wife. Eventually, she reluctantly agreed to let him stay home, but only if he promised to return the next day in clean clothes. After the unpleasant call, Wes began searching for a lawyer. Most large firms didn't handle family law, and the ones that did were booked for weeks. Desperate, he called a smaller firm, Winston Samuels & Associates, and managed to get an appointment that afternoon, though he wondered why Samuels wasn't busier. He needed help urgently. Wes decided to buy new clothes and checked his bank account first. He was relieved to see his paycheck had been deposited, but horrified to find that the joint account with Marlene only had $1 left. Furious, he realized she had taken everything. He added it to the list of issues for his lawyer. He went to Target and bought office-appropriate clothes on impulse. He drove by his house but saw no signs of life, so he returned to the motel and had a lonely lunch. Later, he headed downtown to the law firm. The office, located in an old building near Capitol Mall, had an outdated sign. After introducing himself, he was led to Winston Samuels' office. Samuels, an experienced man in his 60s, listened as Wes explained his situation and handed over the papers. Samuels reviewed them carefully before asking, "What do you want?" Can you get the restraining order lifted? Wes asked. If I could talk to Marlene, maybe I could fix this. Samuels thought for a moment, then leaned forward. I have a few ideas, he said. Wes nodded as the lawyer began listing his points. First, in California, you can't stop a divorce if the other partner wants one. Second, your wife locking you out shows she doesn't want to discuss her decision. Third, the restraining order means she doesn't want to see you without her attorney. Fourth, taking the joint bank account funds is a pressure tactic. You'll eventually get your share, but she's hoping the financial strain will make you agree to the divorce quickly. Lastly, she's been planning this for a while. How do you know that? Wes asked. Samuels explained, getting a restraining order takes time. She hired an attorney, prepared the motion, got it approved by a judge, and changed the locks. This wasn't done overnight. Wes sank into a chair. She never hinted anything was wrong. She even said she loved me when I called from the airport. Samuels remained silent. I guess I'll get a divorce then, Wes said. But why did she do this without even talking to me first? Samuels replied. I can't answer that, but I can refer you to a detective agency. They're efficient and reasonably priced, and they're located in the same building. Shall I contact them for you? Yes, Wes replied. I want to know what's going on. Samuels made the call, and soon the receptionist informed Wes that Detective Trevor Samuels could see him in half an hour. Wes stood outside Sacramento Confidential Investigations, where Trevor, a middle-aged man in a tracksuit, greeted him. I'm Trevor Samuels, head of the CI division. Nice to meet you. Are you related to Winston Samuels? Wes asked. Yes, I'm his brother. I was a detective in San Francisco before going out on my own. Now, let's talk. Wes told his story. Your brother says I can't stop the divorce, but I want to know why she did this. It's humiliating. The detective nodded. I understand. We can find out why, but the protective order is likely her way of setting up her narrative, assuming you've never hurt her or laid a hand on her? No, never, Wes confirmed. Then she's framing you as the bad guy. When people ask about the divorce, she'll mention the protective order. Your reputation takes a hit while she says nothing. Wes was stunned. I can't believe she could be that evil. Trevor nodded. She set this up cleverly. I'll find out why within a week. That would be great, Wes said, shaking Trevor's hand. For the rest of the day, Wes followed the lawyer's advice to protect his finances. The next morning he went to work but was greeted by Edith Norton. I see you're finally here, Mr. Hardaway. You've got a lot of work piled up. I hope you'll be diligent in catching up. God, how I hate that woman, Wes thought, but nodded and hurried to his cubicle. By skipping lunch and working hard, he managed to get through some of the backlog, but his focus shattered when Trevor's phone call came through. Late that evening, a call came in. We've had some luck, Wes, Trevor said. Our researcher uncovered something important. Can you come by tomorrow to see it? Can't you tell me now? Wes asked. Our policy is to present findings in person, Trevor replied. All right, Wes sighed. I'll try to make time. If you don't hear from me, I'll stop by in the morning. Miss Norton was as unfriendly as Wes had feared. Mr. Hardaway, you can't just take time off whenever you feel like it. If you insist on taking tomorrow off, it will count as a vacation day. Yes, ma'am, he responded begrudgingly. The next day, Wes arrived at the office, and Trevor was in a great mood. We're in luck. Come on in. I'll show you. Trevor showed him a fisheye image of Wes's house, where a silver BMW i8 was seen entering the garage at 8:51 p.m. the previous night. That's not your wife's car, is it? Trevor asked. No, she drives a Honda, Wes realized. She had a guest. Exactly. Someone with a new garage code, Trevor confirmed. Another video played, showing the same car leaving the garage at 1:32 p.m. the following day. Wes felt his stomach turn. It didn't take her long to find a new friend, he muttered. Trevor then played another video from 3 weeks ago, showing the same car. How often has this happened? Wes asked nervously. We have documents from the last 6 months. She's met this person 2 or 3 times a week, Trevor explained. Wes felt nauseous. How did you get this? He asked. Your neighbors have motion-activated cameras. Everything goes to a cloud database. Sometimes they catch porch pirates or cheating spouses, Trevor explained. Wes clenched his teeth. Too bad we never saw the guy. Trevor showed another video, this time with the car's license plate visible. I have a contact at the DMV, Trevor said, pressing a button. A driver's license photo of a handsome man appeared on the screen. "Does the name John Mackenzie ring a bell? Son of a," Wes muttered. "Marlene works at his ad agency. I bet that's how they met." He stood up suddenly. "I'm going to confront him right now." "Wait," Trevor said, grabbing Wes's wrist. "This is why I present findings in person. Sit down. Let's talk before you do something stupid." Wes glared but sat back down. "Listen, confronting him could make your wife's case for a restraining order stronger," Trevor warned. "Your reputation is already shaky. Don't ruin it permanently." Wes bowed his head. "I'm not a fighter. If I went to Mackenzie's office, I'd probably lose. Besides, Marlene would love two men fighting over her. But I can't just sit back and let them get away with this." "I get your frustration," Trevor said. "But there are other ways to achieve your goals without risking jail time." "Like what?" Wes asked. "I spoke with Dash Daniels, our IT expert. She's well-versed in social media and has some ideas. You should hear her out." Wes looked uncertain. "I don't know. She's just down the hall. Give her a chance. If you don't like what she says, you won't lose anything." Trevor led Wes to a door labeled Antisocial Network. "Ignore that," Trevor said. "It's her sense of humor." He knocked and entered, with Wes following. The room resembled a college dorm, with a worn desk, several monitors, and posters on dark gray walls. A tall, slender girl with white hair and gothic makeup greeted them. "I'm Dash Daniels," she said. "You must be the cheatie." Wes shook her hand. "What if your wife is cheating?" Dash clarified. "Behave," Trevor interjected. "Just hear her out." Wes sat down, and Dash motioned for him to join her on the futon. "Tell me everything," she said, crossing her legs. Wes explained the situation, and Dash listened intently. "I don't usually do this," she said after a pause. "But I hate crooks. My dad filled me in." "Wait, Trevor is your dad?" "Yes, and Winston is my uncle. It's a family business. I hear your ex has you cornered. To shift this, I need all the details. What did she do? What did you do? And how do you feel about it?" "I'm not sure how an expert in computers can help," Wes admitted. "None taken," Dash replied. "I manage social media reputations. It's exactly what you need to fight back against your ex." Wes hesitated. "I don't really use the internet. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, eBay, Instagram. Not really my thing." "Okay, then let's uncover the basics," Dash said. "A large portion of the population is online all the time. That's where they get news, meet people, and find entertainment. It's huge. There are YouTubers making thousands of dollars playing games, businesses thriving on Amazon, and influencers shaping public opinion. If we can get this audience on your side, your ex will be powerless." "Can you really do that?" Wes asked, intrigued. "We'll see. Now tell me your story again, but focus on your emotions and reactions." "Emotions move people more than facts," Dash encouraged. Wes hesitated, then agreed. For the next hour, he shared his story from an emotional perspective. Dash took notes, asking questions along the way. When he finished, she reviewed her notes and looked at him seriously. "Now, let's get to work," Dash said. "I think I know how to handle this. But first, Wes, how strong are you?" "Physically?" Wes asked. "No, your ego. How well do you handle criticism and other people's opinions?" Dash clarified. "I guess I'm as strong as anyone else," Wes replied. "Well, we'll see," Dash said. "I don't understand," Wes admitted. "Every good story has an arc," Dash explained, drawing a half circle in the air. "The main character starts here, faces a downfall, hits a low point, and then things improve. We need to show your suffering to gain support." "I still don't get it, but I'm already suffering," Wes said. Dash gave him a sad smile. "We'll see. You need to be ready to act on short notice. I'll call you. Can you do that?" "If it's during work hours, my boss will be mad," Wes replied. "But I'm already on her bad side." "Great," Dash said, shaking his hand. "I hate cheaters." Wes left, still processing everything. "What did I do to deserve this?" he groaned. "And what have I gotten myself into now?" The next day, Dash called him during lunch. "Can you pick me up? We have a chance now." "My boss will hate me," Wes replied. "But I'll be there in 20 minutes. Miss Norton reluctantly agreed. "Remember, this counts as a vacation day," she shouted as he left. When Wes reached the Samuels building, Dash was waiting outside. "You got a new wardrobe," he joked, but she ignored him. "Are we going to your house?" she ordered. "I can't be there with her in the house," Wes protested. "Don't worry. My father saw her leave. He'll keep an eye on us," Dash reassured him. "Are we breaking in?" Wes asked, nervous. "No, just recreating what happened when you got home," Dash explained. "And you?" Wes questioned. "I'll film everything," Dash replied. "Why?" Wes asked. "We need to give your fans a backstory," she answered. "Fans?" "I don't have fans," Wes said, confused. "Not yet," Dash said. Now tell me how you felt during the whole encounter. Wes described his emotions. Excitement, anger, confusion, depression, and shock. Perfect, Dash said. Now at your house, walk us through each step and show those emotions. Can you do that? I'm not a good actor, Wes admitted. Don't act. Just remember and repeat what you did. Now give me your phone, Dash directed. She fiddled with his phone, handed him a Bluetooth earpiece, and directed him to his neighborhood. Once there, she called him and motioned for him to get out and walk to the door. She filmed as he tried to open the door. Don't look at me, she said. Just do what you did before. As Wes attempted to open the door, memories and emotions from that day flooded back, souring his mood. Ring the doorbell, Dash instructed through the earpiece. He pressed the button. Recalling his frustration, Wes knocked again, this time more forcefully, as his irritation grew. Marlene shouted that she had changed the locks and wanted a divorce. Dash narrated. Wes staggered back, recalling the shock and venom in her voice. He tried to argue, but she didn't budge. There's a man behind you, Dash prompted. Wes turned and saw Trevor Samuels approaching, holding papers. Trevor handed him one and read from another. The text was unclear, but Wes stared at it as though it were a death sentence. He turned back to the door and began banging on it with his palm. The officer is telling you to leave, Dash continued. Wes imagined the officer's words as a judge's ruling. Without any further hesitation, he dropped his hands, sighed, and walked away. His legs felt heavy, and his world seemed shattered. Go to the car, Dash reminded him. Slowly, Wes walked to the car, got in, and sat down. You did great, Wes! I got some really good shots, Dash said, sliding into the passenger seat. He started the car and drove back downtown, but there was no cop. We don't need him. No one but you and Marlene knows about him, Dash explained, giving his shoulder a squeeze. That was amazing, Wes. You really got into it. Can we not talk right now? Wes asked, his voice full of pain. Dash pulled her hand back and stared out the window. By the time they reached the Samuels building, she had made her decision. Park in the lot, she instructed. You're coming with me. She led him to her office, gestured for him to sit on the futon, and returned with 2 bottles of beer. They drank in silence. After finishing the second bottle, she spoke. You're really into this, aren't you? Wes sighed. Yeah, it all came back. The shock, the confusion, the despair. I guess I never dealt with it. Dash nodded. I'm sorry I made you relive it, but your reaction will have a real impact on the audience. Wes took another sip. I still don't see how this will help. I'll use this video to start your storyline, the decline, and then we'll bring it back to a happy ending, she explained. So you're promising me blood, sweat, and tears? Wes asked. Exactly. But remember, the British lost in the end because America helped, Dash quipped. Yeah, and you've got me on your side. It won't be a fair fight, Wes replied. She stood up. Now let me work. I don't know why, but I trust you, he said. Thanks for the beer. She quickly hugged him. Hang in there, Wes. Things will get better, I promise. As he drove back to the motel, Wes felt a glimmer of hope. The next morning, his mood soured quickly. Edith Norton was absent, and work was wearing him down. The only bright moment came when he received a call from Dash. Can you come over after work? I've got something you'll want to see, she said. The last 2 hours of work passed quickly. At Dash's office, she sat him down and unfolded a large monitor. To understand, you need to watch some YouTube first, she explained. Ever heard of Gossip Girl Gertie's Back Fence? No, should I have? Wes asked. You definitely should, Dash replied. An ad for beauty products played, and Dash impatiently skipped it. The screen then showed a typical middle-class backyard with a white picket fence and a sign, Gossip Girl Gertie's Back Fence. The set switched to a desk with the same fence behind it. A hostess with a 1950s-style blonde wig and clothes introduced herself. Oh, how nice to see you, the woman squealed. I'm Gertie, the Gossip Girl. I just found out the juiciest gossip ever, and I'm going to tell you all about it. She then listed gossip, life stories, fashion tips, product recommendations, and more. Charts and videos illustrated each segment. After a few minutes, Dash paused the program. Okay, you get the idea. What do you think? Is this her hobby? Wes asked. A hobby? Dash snorted. It's her full-time job. Can she make a living doing this? Wes asked, astonished. Advertisers pay well for popular YouTube shows, Dash explained. How well? Wes asked. A show with 1 million subscribers can make over $50,000 a year, Dash replied. $50,000 a year? Wes repeated. Not bad, Dash said. Gertie's show had about 100 million subscribers last year, she revealed. 100 million? That means she makes $5 million a year? Wes was stunned. Exactly, Dash said, sitting in another chair. To be successful, a show needs constant content. Gertie gets most of her material from publicists and advertisers, but she needs more to keep her subscribers. That's where I come in. I suggest stories she can use. I'll push your story to her to get you attention. Why would she be interested in my story? Wes asked. I'm going to make you the symbol of every heartless man who has cruelly abandoned a wife or girlfriend, Dash explained. What? I'm not a quitter, Wes protested. Not in my version, Dash replied. Look at the footage and script I've put together for Gertie. She clicked on a file showing Wes's car pulling into his driveway. Dash read the script. How many of you have been dumped by a boyfriend or kicked out by an insensitive husband? In Sacramento, a wife changed all the locks and kicked him out. The video showed Wes pounding on the door. Look at his face. He can't believe it. Watch him deflate when the BFF hands him the divorce papers, she continued. And for the grand finale, the humiliated husband takes the long, shameful walk to his car. Wes watched the screen, feeling the humiliation all over again. Do we have to do it like that? He asked. I'm sorry, Wes, but it's the only way, Dash replied. Okay, if you say so. At least you didn't use names. I hope no one recognizes me, Wes said, resigned. Dash turned away without a word. The next day at work, Wes received a message from Dash. You're live on Gertie. Fasten your seatbelt. For the last hour of work, Wes watched his co-workers, but nothing seemed unusual. Edith Norton glanced at him as he left at 5:30 p.m., but that wasn't strange. He decided to stop by Dash's office. Gertie loved it, Dash said cheerfully. She used it just like you saw, but did the voicing herself. She's already getting a great response. A lot of women love seeing an insensitive man suffer. But I'm not like that, Wes protested. They don't know that. It's spreading online. Someone on TikTok shared your face, and now it's going viral. My Facebook accounts are getting posts about it too, Dash informed him. But don't worry, she added. On the internet, you're called Humiliated Husband. Great nickname, Wes muttered sarcastically. So what's next? We'll let this develop for another day, then move to Phase 2, Dash explained. What's Phase 2? Wes asked. We turn you into a real villain, Dash replied. Does it have to be? Wes questioned, uneasy. Absolutely. You can't rise unless you fall first, Dash insisted. I don't think Newton said that, Wes remarked. Yes, but Sir Isaac didn't know about the internet, Dash countered. Wes spent the evening in a somber mood, struggling to fall asleep in the cramped motel room. The next morning, he overslept and had to rush to work. Entering the lobby, he noticed the receptionist staring at him intently, making a phone call. What was that about? He wondered, as he settled at his desk. Throughout the morning, an unusual number of employees passed by his cubicle, making snide comments and muffled laughter. Just before lunch, a supervisor burst in. Wes, this internet nonsense is affecting your work. It's not professional to air your personal problems. Ma'am, I'm just working on the Wilson case. I'll have the file ready by 2 p.m., Wes replied. Email it to me. Judging by the way you're moving, it'll take an hour, she said, walking away. Wes felt anxious. If even Edith had seen it, this story must be everywhere. He groaned, trying to stay inconspicuous. During a restroom break, a group of co-workers noticed him. Workers gathered in the hallway, and a nervous intern approached Wes. Mr. Hardaway, some people want to know if your initials are HH, the intern asked. Wes stared in shock as the group burst into laughter. He quickly hurried to the restroom for some peace. At 5 p.m., he rushed out of the office and drove to the Samuels building, confronting Dash. What did you do to me? Everyone knows it's me, even my boss, Wes demanded. I'm not surprised, Dash replied calmly. Wes, you've become a meme. A what? Wes asked, confused. A meme. That video of you walking away, humiliated, has gone viral. You're now the poster boy for a man humiliated by a woman, Dash explained. Wes sank into a chair, his arms covering his head. Dash knelt in front of him. Wes, it's going to get worse tomorrow. Gertie will reveal that you were served with a protection order. Can you stay strong? She asked. I'll try. I don't have a choice, Wes muttered. The next day, Jack Mackenzie parked his silver BMW in Wes's driveway. Inside, Marlene frowned at her computer. Did you see this? She asked, pointing to Gertie's video of Wes. How did they get that tape? Probably one of your neighbors filmed it, Jack replied. It makes Wes look like an idiot, and you're smart for dumping him. I guess you're right, but I feel sorry for him. Look at his face, Marlene said, her voice softening. The day started better for Wes. People still stared, but the novelty seemed to have worn off. His calmness shattered mid-morning when he received a text from Dash. "The second part of Gertie is up. Stay cool," she warned. Wes logged into YouTube and watched in horror as Gertie's new video played. She revealed the restraining order, showing the official document and speculating on its implications. "To the wife, we hope you are safe. To the humiliated hubby, goodbye, and we hope you get what you deserve," Gertie declared. Wes felt his world crumble as Gertie's influential words painted him as the villain. "Oh my God," Wes muttered. "Gertie could put a bounty on my head. I've got to get out of here." The office, which normally had a steady hum of background noise, now felt like a low, menacing growl. Wes noticed co-workers whispering and throwing accusatory glances his way. He tried to slip out unnoticed, but the crowd only grew, and snide comments and muffled laughter echoed around him. Suddenly, the noise died down when Edith Norton entered his cubicle. "Mr. Hardaway, unprofessional behavior affects our office. Normally, your personal life is your business, but not when it involves spousal abuse," she said sternly. "But I never touched Marlene," Wes exclaimed. "Then why did she seek legal recourse? Why must you stay 200 yards away from her?" Edith asked. "I don't know why," Wes replied, desperation in his voice. "Enough!" she shouted. "This company has zero tolerance for spousal abuse. You are terminated, effective today." Wes's mouth dropped open, but Edith continued. "You'll be paid for your work and receive 2 weeks' severance. Leave immediately. Ralph will escort you out." A stout security guard entered. "Mr. Hardaway, we won't have any problems, will we?" Ralph asked. Wes shook his head and allowed the guard to lead him away. The murmurs grew louder behind him. In his car, Wes sat dazed until Ralph gestured for him to leave the parking lot. He drove aimlessly until he found himself outside the Samuels building, angry. He rushed to Dash's office. "What did you do to me?" he demanded. "I've been going through hell all day. Everyone knows it's me, even my boss." "They fired you?" Dash asked, concerned. "Hatchet-faced Norton fired me. They're sending me severance pay," Wes explained, frustration evident in his voice. "That's great," Dash exclaimed. "Don't go anywhere, Wes. I'll be right back." She ran out, leaving Wes puzzled. Exhausted, he laid down on the futon, half asleep. He woke when Dash returned and sat beside him. "I'm so sorry, Wes," Dash said, taking his hands. "I knew Phase 2 would be tough, but I didn't expect your firm to act so quickly. It's the worst part. Tomorrow we'll let things settle, then launch Phase 3, Dash continued. "Oh God, now what?" Wes asked, groaning. "Now your arc will climb. You've hit bottom. It's going up from here," Dash reassured him. "Uncle Winston says don't cash any checks from your firm." "You talked to your uncle about this?" Wes asked, surprised. "Yes, and he insisted you don't sign anything without his approval," Dash replied. "But I'm running out of money. Paying for the motel, eating out, buying clothes. It's all adding up," Wes said, worried. Dash brightened. "You could move here? Live in your office?" "Live here?" Wes asked incredulously. "Yes, I live here. There's a converted bedroom and a bathroom," Dash explained. "But I can't do that." "Where would I sleep?" Wes asked, uncertain. "On the futon, until we sort things out," Dash replied. Seeing his hesitation, she squeezed his hands. "It's silly to waste money on a motel now that you're laid off. You'll be here most of the time anyway. Let's go out for dinner and talk about it." They went to a small bistro where Wes recounted his day. She listened sympathetically. After dinner, she insisted on paying the check. Back in the car, Dash said, "Why don't we stop by your motel, get your stuff, and check out? I'll drive you back to the office." Too tired to argue, Wes agreed. They gathered his belongings and returned downtown. Dash helped him set up the futon as a bed. She reappeared wearing a long t-shirt with video game characters. "Everything you need?" she asked. He nodded. "Thanks for the stash. I'm glad to be here and not in that motel." "Me too," Dash said, smiling. After turning out the lights, Wes lay in the semi-darkness, illuminated by computer screensavers and LED lights. A wave of depression washed over him. What happened to my life? I've lost my marriage, my house, my job, and my friends. Now I'm trying to sleep in someone else's office, on someone else's bed. What did I do wrong? He pondered this until he finally fell asleep. The next morning, Dash brought coffee and sweet rolls. Still melancholy, Wes was soon distracted by searching social media for mentions of him. Typing "humiliated hubby" into a search engine, he was shocked by the numerous tweets, TikToks, Instagrams, Facebook links, and even a Wikipedia entry about him. "I spent most of yesterday posting images, comments, and links to spread your story," Dash admitted. "But it took off on its own. There were comments about you in other countries and languages. Great, he muttered sarcastically. Now I'm infamous worldwide. Even more disturbing were the hateful comments urging him to injure himself. I might need a bodyguard before this is over, he groaned. The farther you fall now, the higher you'll bounce back, Dash encouraged him. I hope you're right because I feel like I'm dropping like a stone, Wes said, disheartened. Meanwhile, Marlene was reading comments about Wes on Gertie's site. Worried, she called Jack. This is out of hand. I want to get rid of him, not destroy him. He never slapped me or did what they accuse him of. Should I say something? She asked. No, Jack replied sharply. Let it develop. This publicity will make the divorce smoother and probably get you a better settlement. When we go public, people will support you. We couldn't have planned it better. You really think so? Marlene asked, uncertain. Absolutely. Wes has a target on his back and people want to take shots at him. He'll never recover, Jack assured her. After lunch, Dash received a call from Gertie, which she put on speaker for Wes to hear. Hi, Gertie. Did you like the latest on the Humiliated hubby? Dash asked, winking at Wes. It blew up. Best story you've ever sent me. Got 50,000 new subscribers? Got anything else? Gertie asked, thrilled. Perfect timing. I'm putting together more material. It'll be ready by the end of the day, Dash replied. Really? What have you got? Gertie asked eagerly. What if the humiliated husband isn't such a bad guy? Dash proposed. Are you kidding? That's amazing, Gertie exclaimed. Let's make it 2 episodes. Send them both to me as soon as possible. After the call, Dash turned to Wes. Feeling better? She asked. It's good Gertie liked it, but we need to see the subscribers' reactions, he said with a smile. I'm starting to feel more hopeful. Dash worked through the evening, finalizing the material. Wes monitored social media but mostly stayed out of her way. When she was satisfied, she uploaded everything to Gertie and relaxed. After receiving a thumbs up, she said, How about we order a pizza? I've got beer in the fridge. We can relax and unwind. Sounds good, Wes agreed. After eating, he asked, How did you and Gertie become such good buddies? We met as freshmen at the California Institute of Technology, Dash explained. Caltech? I wouldn't have guessed. She once wanted to be an electrical engineer, Wes said, surprised. What about you? Dash asked. I majored in computer science but never finished. Something happened and I dropped out, Wes replied. Sensing she didn't want to elaborate, he tried another question. Where did you get the nickname Dash? Did you run track or something? She shook her head and grinned. Actually, Dash is short for Dashiell, from Dashiell Hammett. My father loves detective novels, especially The Thin Man and The Maltese Falcon. Wes nodded. What about Daniels? Her smile faded. That's my ex-husband's last name. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to bring up bad memories, Wes apologized. It's fine, she said, looking away. In college, I was a rebellious girl from Sacramento. Joey, my ex, was a bad boy, and I got involved with him. We ran away together, and my father helped us with an apartment in Pasadena. I didn't know Joey was wasting the money on pills and another woman. It all came crashing down when he left with her. Wes noticed her pained expression. That must have been tough. It was. I ended up on the streets until my dad found me and brought me home. It took a while, but I rebuilt my life. That's why I kept his last name, as a reminder of what he did. If I had to do it over, I'd go back to Samuel's, but I'm used to Daniel's now, Dash explained. It must have been so painful, Wes said sympathetically. Yeah, but I understand what you're going through, she said impulsively. Wes hugged her, and she reciprocated. Well, aren't we a pair? She said with a sad laugh. The next day, they sat in front of Dash's big screen, waiting for Gertie's new installment. Wes was impatient, but Dash reassured him. Finally, Gertie appeared, her excitement clear. I have big news, gossip lovers. The saga of the humiliated hubby has a new twist. With a dramatic twist, Gertie announced, and an image of Wes's house appeared on the screen, showing a silver BMW pulling into the garage. Guess whose car this is? She asked. Jack Mackenzie, head of Mackenzie Agency, visiting Mrs. Hubby 3 months before she filed for divorce. Images flashed, showing the sports car arriving multiple times. I'm not judging Mrs. Hubby, but there's more to the story. Stay tuned for our next revelation, Gertie teased. Dash quickly turned off the program, and both of them jumped up in excitement, clapping. Wes hugged her tightly. That was amazing. You're amazing, he said, gazing at her. Then, he leaned in for a kiss. She hesitated but then responded passionately. Their moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Winston Samuel's secretary peeked in. Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Samuels wants to see you, Mr. Hardaway, she said. Of course, Wes replied and followed her, throwing one last glance at Dash. Winston Samuels was waiting and ushered Wes into his office. "Since you chose our firm, I was very interested to hear about your dismissal. My niece told me about it, and I recommended you not cash checks or sign anything from your former employer," Winston said. "Yes, sir, she passed it on," Wes confirmed. "Good. That could imply a settlement, and you don't want to accept any offers right now," Winston advised. "Okay," Wes replied hesitantly. "You were fired for violating the firm's spousal misuse policy, correct?" Winston asked. "Yes, sir, my former boss made that clear," Wes responded. "Can anyone else confirm that?" Winston inquired. "I can give you at least half a dozen names," Wes answered. "Great. Assuming that's what happened, I've prepared a wrongful termination lawsuit." "You didn't misuse your spouse?" Winston asked. Wes shook his head. "Then they had no reason to believe otherwise. Your public firing slandered your name, and they didn't follow company procedures. I believe you have a strong case for $10 million in damages." "Does that seem fair?" "Yes, sir, that sounds fair," Wes said, stunned. "Do you think we can get that much?" Wes asked. "We have a good chance, but it might take 3 to 5 years in court," Winston warned. Wes's face dropped, but Winston continued. "They won't want bad publicity, and your popularity is rising. I think we can settle out of court quickly for about half, plus legal fees. $5 million should be fine." Wes nodded quickly. "I hoped you'd think so. Sign this, and I'll start the process." Wes signed the papers. "Will this affect my divorce? I don't want Marlene to benefit," Wes asked. "I don't think so. These events occurred after the divorce petition and actions led to your dismissal, so she shouldn't benefit," Winston assured him. Wes breathed a sigh of relief and hurried back to Dash's office. She was busy at her keyboard. When he tried to share the news, she interrupted. "Can it wait, Wes? I've got a deadline." She turned back to the monitor. Disappointed, Wes said, "I think I'll go for a walk." When he received no reply, he left. He walked to the Capitol Mall and stopped at the Tower Bridge, staring at the Sacramento River. "I shouldn't have kissed her. She probably thinks I'm a fool." But she did respond. Maybe it was just pity, he thought to himself. Returning to the Samuels building, he found Dash still immersed in her work. He kept his distance as he entered. Meanwhile, Marlene angrily called Jack McKenzie. "Have you seen that gossip show on YouTube? How did they get video of you in my garage? I thought you were careful," she demanded. "I was one of those video doorbells. Must have caught me. They keep footage for months," Jack replied. "I'd like to know who found it." "Do you think Wes could be behind it?" Marlene asked. "Wes? Are you crazy? He's the humiliated husband. He wouldn't do that to himself. He didn't know anything," Jack replied. "I don't know, but it must be somebody," Marlene insisted. "Yeah, and I'd shoot them if I could find out. It's twisted our plans," Jack grumbled. "I hate it." "You know what would make me feel better? Come over and spend some time with me," Marlene said seductively. "I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't want to end up in another video. Maybe we should wait." Jack hesitated. "Come after dark. Turn off your headlights before the driveway. Since Wes is gone, it'll be safe. I'll make sure you won't regret it," Marlene coaxed. "What time?" Jack asked. "Later," she said. Jack walked through the garage door, and Marlene emerged from her bedroom, dressed in all black and clutching pruning shears. "Jack, you kept me waiting," she said accusingly. "I'm sorry," Jack pleaded. "I couldn't help it." "You know what to do," she commanded. "Go to the bedroom." "Yes, mistress," Jack replied and hurried to obey. The next day, the dynamic between Dash and Wes seemed back to normal. Dash grew more animated as the time to watch the latest Gertie's Gossip Girl episode approached. She beckoned Wes to the large screen monitor to watch with her. After the introduction, Gertie appeared, her excitement clear. The humiliated husband saga continues. "Last time I revealed Marlene, his unfaithful wife," Gertie said, as a picture of Marlene appeared. "Was she having an affair with advertising executive Jack McKenzie? Could this be why she kicked her helpless hubby out?" Gertie checked the police records for the humiliated hubby. No convictions, no complaints. Odd. Could Mrs. Hubby just want to further humiliate him? Gertie speculated. But why did Judge Harold Shams issue a restraining order? Could it be because Judge Chairs is running for re-election? An ad for Judge Chalmers appeared. And guess what? 3 weeks before the restraining order, the judge received a $10,000 campaign contribution from McKenzie Advertising. The list of donors appeared with the contribution circled. "I'm not suggesting the judge acted because of the donation. Draw your own conclusions," Gertie said. "But I think we owe the humiliated hubby an apology." "Wow, just wow," Wes said as Dash turned off the video. That should give Marlene and her boyfriend something to worry about, Wes said. He reached out to hug Dash but held back. Dash, you're a genius. That looked convincing. Thanks, she said. But the big question is how the internet will react. Why don't you grab lunch for us? We'll have plenty of feedback by the time you get back. When Wes returned with a deli bag, Dash waved him over. Look at this, she said, pointing to her monitor. She was scrolling through an endless list of comments, many with emoticons and GIFs. What are those? Wes asked. That's the Humiliated hubby Twitter feed, Dash explained. Gertie's episode sparked a flurry of comments. That's just one segment of the reaction. Gertie's show is getting its own reactions on YouTube, Instagram, and more. It looks like a lot of people have watched it, and now they're taking sides. Hubby's team is ahead of Mrs. Hubby's team by about 70%. Wes froze, trying to comprehend. Wait, 30% are on Marlene's side? Dash reassured him. Don't worry. You'll always have the crazies. What matters is you've gone from zero to hero for most Twitter users. He looked at her, shaking his head appreciatively. You were right. This storyline is really working. You're amazing. Stepping toward her, Dash pulled away. Listen, Wes. About what happened between us the other day, she began. Oh yeah, that, Wes said. I think we need to cool down a little. I know we're kind of living together, but I don't know if I'm ready. No, it's okay, Dash, I get it. I got caught up in the moment, he reassured her. She looked uncertain. I mean, no really, he interrupted. I get it, she said before they were interrupted by Wes's phone ringing. It was his former boss, Edith Norton. Wes, she said pleasantly, I'm glad I caught you. Can you come into the office? I have important information for you. I don't know, Edith. We didn't part on good terms, Wes replied hesitantly. I know, Wes, and I'm sorry. But something's happened here that you'll want to know about. It'll be worth your time, I promise, Edith insisted. Wes started to refuse but remembered the awkwardness with Dash. Okay, I'll be there soon, he agreed. When Wes arrived at his old office building, he was greeted warmly by the receptionist, who even asked for an autograph. Edith Norton came out to meet him and escorted him to her office. Staff peeked out from their cubicles like prairie dogs. Let me get to the point, Wes, Edith began. Last time we met, things were said that I wish I could take back. Your work has always been excellent, and we've missed you. We'd like to offer you your job back. Wes remained silent, and she quickly added, Not your old job, but a promotion to director with a 15% raise. You can keep the severance pay as a signing bonus. What do you say? Wes sat up straight. So, you admit I was fired for spousal misuse, which I didn't commit, and my termination didn't follow the employee handbook? That's all water under the bridge, Wes, Edith said. Let's focus on the future. Your promotion, pay raise, and bonus plan, Edith said, attempting to smooth things over. Wes stood up, glaring at her. Edith, you can take the raise, pay increase, and new title, and shove it. I'll see you in court, he declared before storming out of her office, hearing applause from the cubicles as he left. After lunch, Winston Samuels called Wes to discuss the meeting. Tell me you made no commitments and didn't sign anything, Winston said. Wes repeated what Edith had told him, and the lawyer grinned. It wasn't wise to go in there without a lawyer, but I understand your boss's desperate attempt to get you back. It's a positive sign. We'll probably hear from their lawyers soon. When Dash returned, they ordered Thai food and discussed the visit. Wes recounted his run-in with Edith and mentioned the lawsuit, but left out details to avoid sounding like he was trying to impress her. Dash seemed happy for him. After everything you've been through, you deserve a little luck, she said. The conversation paused, and Wes noticed Dash staring at him. What's wrong? He asked. She hesitated before asking, You asked me about my past. Can I ask you about yours? Sure, ask away, Wes replied. How did you and Marlene end up together? Dash inquired. Wes rolled his eyes. I met her at a Chamber of Commerce event. We hit it off, talked all evening, and things moved fast. We got married 6 months after we met. And you didn't know her that well? Dash asked. I thought I did. She told me she was divorced, and I believed her. Her ex was an idiot. She wanted to elope, and we married right after her divorce was finalized. It seemed exciting and romantic at the time, Wes explained. Dash sat in silence, processing his words. I was just curious how you two ended up together, she said, standing up and stretching. I'm really tired. I think I'll go to bed early. See you in the morning, Wes. He watched her door close and muttered to himself. What's this all about? The next morning, Wes's phone rang early. Mr. Hardaway? A woman's voice said. This is Winston Samuels' office. Mr. Samuels would like to meet with you this morning? Sure, I can be there in about an hour, Wes replied. He knocked on Dash's door and found her fully dressed. Good morning, Wes, she said. Who was on the phone? Your uncle's secretary. He wants to see me in an hour. Can I use your shower? Wes asked. Dash waved him off. He showered, shaved, and dressed. When he came out, he saw Dash had bought coffee. You need caffeine and carbs for a good breakfast, she said, smirking. At the lawyer's office, the receptionist greeted Wes warmly. We're expecting you, she said with a smile. Winston Samuels looked stern as Wes sat down. I've been negotiating with your former employer, he said. We couldn't agree on the $5 million we discussed. Wes felt disappointed, but a hint of a smile appeared on Winston's face. However, I secured $6.5 million. I hope that's satisfactory. $6.5 million? You're kidding, Wes exclaimed. They'll cover my fees too. The only condition is a non-disclosure agreement and no public comments about the deal. Is that okay? Winston asked. For $6.5 million, I'll gladly stay silent, Wes replied. The lawyer gestured for Wes to stop. Remember, the IRS and the state will take their share. You'll get about half. Wes smiled. $6.5 million. I will gladly stay silent, he repeated. Good, but don't tell anyone, especially your family. I never discuss a client's business without their consent, Winston assured him. Wes then returned to Dash's office, and she looked curious. What did Uncle Winston say? She asked. Do you have any plans for tonight? He asked nonchalantly. No, why? She responded. Great. I'd like to thank you by taking you to dinner. Have you been to the Firehouse restaurant? He asked. I'd love to, but the Firehouse is expensive. Are you sure? She replied. I've already made reservations. Besides, it's not too expensive for a man about to get a very good settlement, Wes said. Realization dawned, and Dash jumped with delight. Oh, Wes, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Then she looked concerned. The Firehouse tonight? I don't have anything to wear, and I need to get my hair done. No, you don't need to change anything, Wes reassured her. Why not? She asked. It took me a while, but now I think your style suits you, he said. She hesitated, but then hurried into her bedroom. A few minutes later, she emerged. I need to shop. Damn you, Wes Hardaway. I haven't shopped in years, she exclaimed, grabbing her car keys. Stay here if anyone needs anything. I'll be back soon. She sprinted out the door. It was dark when she returned with several bags and quickly disappeared into her bedroom. Wes decided to get dressed too, putting on the only suit he had salvaged from his house. Behind him, he heard her voice. Well, what do you think? She asked. He turned to see her in an ankle-length black halter dress. Dash, is that you? He asked, surprised. Her face fell. You don't like it? No, he rushed over. You look amazing, like a model. I've just never seen you in such an elegant dress. Relieved, she smiled. I was afraid it was too much, but it looked so good in the store. He stepped back to take another look. The black dress contrasted with her hair, and the silver high-heeled sandals completed the look. You look so tall, and the dress really suits you, he marveled. Then he glanced at his own clothes. Now I'm wondering if I look good enough to go with you. She laughed, kissed his cheek, and said, I would have told you if you didn't. Now why don't you call us a cab? As they finished dinner on the Firehouse's brick-lined terrace, Dash sipped her wine and got serious. Wes, remember how I pulled away the other day? She asked. His smile faded. I remember, but it was my fault. No, it wasn't you, Wes. It was me, she said, looking down at the table. Remember when I told you about my marriage? It really hurt me. I haven't dated since then. He looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Dash. I didn't mean to pressure you. No, you didn't. I just reacted instinctively. When I first met you, I thought you were just another clueless husband. But I've come to see you're wise, funny, romantic, and loyal. That's important to me. She blushed. If you wanted to kiss me again, I wouldn't run away. He smiled triumphantly and took her hand. Before he could speak, a waiter approached. I think we'll skip dessert, Wes said. Dash blushed again. Meanwhile, Marlene angrily tried to contact Jack Mackenzie. What's this about bribing Judge Shares for a protective order? I thought you said he was your friend, she demanded. In politics, friend means sponsor. The judge needed a friendship gesture to help, but now the agency directors have kicked me out, and the California Department of Revenue is auditing us. I'm screwed, Jack explained. Oh, Jack, Marlene said. Sorry is worthless. Forget my number while I fix this nightmare. Jack snapped, hanging up. What am I going to do now? She moaned. Wes and Dash, engrossed in each other, barely noticed the Lyft driver as he dropped them off at the Samuels building. They hurried to the elevator and up to the 6th floor, hugging tightly. Once inside Dash's office apartment, She told him to wait while she went to her bedroom. "I'll be just a minute," she said. When he entered, he found the room lit by candles. Dash stood in the soft light, and they had an incredibly good time that night. The next morning, Wes woke up early and lay thinking. He got up quietly to avoid waking Dash. When he returned, she was already awake and dressing. She looked at him apprehensively. "What's the matter, Wes? Where did you go?" she asked. "I needed to take a walk and think," he replied. "What were you thinking about?" she asked, trying to hide her worry. He sat across from her with a serious expression. "Losing my marriage, my home, and my job has made me rethink my future. Everything seemed clear before, but now I'm questioning what I want and where I want to live." He saw her uncertainty and explained. "I'm not from Sacramento. My father was in the Army, and I grew up in Colorado Springs. We moved here because my mom had relatives in California. Now that my parents are gone, I have no ties here." He showed her his phone. "My realtor says there's an offer on the house coming soon." He sipped his coffee. "I lost my job, and thanks to your uncle, I have some financial breathing room. When the divorce goes through, I'll be done with Marlene in Sacramento. It's not a bad city, but it's nothing special to me." She nodded, though her expression seemed to wilt. "I've been thinking, and I want to leave and start fresh somewhere else. Maybe the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful." He paused awkwardly. "I'm sorry, Dash. What I mean is, would you consider coming with me?" She was bracing for the worst, so it took a moment to process. "You want me to come with you? For how long?" she asked. "As long as you want," Wes replied. "But how long do you want me to stay?" she asked. "I don't want you to ever leave," Wes confessed. She gasped and hugged him tightly. After a long embrace, he pulled back. "I know it's a lot to ask, Dash, leaving your family and job, and you don't know me that well yet," he began. "Shut up," she interrupted. "Your problem, Wes, is not understanding when someone says yes." She kissed him again, showing she needed no more convincing. For the next few days, they were almost oblivious to others. Their relationship change was noticed by everyone, providing amusement for the ladies on the floor and eye-rolling for the brothers. Reality soon intervened. Wes had to consult Winston Samuels about the divorce. Marlene became reasonable, and issues were quickly resolved, allowing the divorce to proceed without conflict. Wes arranged for Winston to handle the house sale closing and the settlement with his accounting firm, keeping the outcome from Dash for now. Dash had worked for several clients, primarily her father. Dash's father had expressed concern when she informed him about her plans to leave with Wes. "Are you sure? I remember what happened with Joey. I don't want you to get hurt again," he said. She tensed, expecting resistance. "It's different now, Dad. I'm older and wiser. Wes isn't like Joey. He's not impulsive, doesn't have a wandering eye, and he doesn't have a drinking problem," she reassured him. "I know," he replied, surprising her. "I've checked. I almost lost you once. I'm not risking it again." She began to argue, but he continued. "Everything I've found about Wes matches what you've said. He's tough, reliable, intelligent, and hardworking. He was a faithful husband, just a little naive about Marlene. You've chosen well. I'd hate to see you go, but if you want to, you have my blessing." "Oh, Papa," she exclaimed, hugging him tightly. After pulling away, he said, "I'm glad you won't have financial problems. I'd hate to see you close your business. You're really good at it, and I rely on you more than you know." She laughed. "Going with Wes doesn't mean I'll stop working. I can run my business from anywhere with a laptop and high-speed internet. You're not getting rid of me that easily." "I'm very glad to hear that," her father said, his tone lightening. Then his expression grew serious. "There's something else you both need to hear. Wes should join us." Confused, Dash found Wes and brought him into the room. Winston Samuels was sitting on the edge of his desk. "I've learned some news that might affect you both. Jack McKenzie, your ex-wife's lover, has been ousted from his agency and is under investigation for tax fraud," he informed them. Wes shrugged. "I'm not shedding any tears for him," Winston continued. "That's not all. He and Marlene are no longer dating and haven't spoken in weeks." Wes and Dash exchanged looks. "Okay," Wes said firmly. Dash looked at her father. "Why make such a big deal about this?" she asked. The detective addressed them both. "It's not what happened, but what might happen next. Wes, your ex's scheme failed. She has no prospects of finding a new lover or selling her work. I believe she'll try to reconcile with you." Dash sighed. "Good luck with that," she muttered. Wes waved dismissively. "I wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole." Trevor nodded in agreement. "I understand. But don't underestimate her. She could delay the divorce, object to the house sale, or petition for family counseling. Dash brought up their plans to leave town. Marlene could drag this out for a while, she noted. But why would she do that? Wes asked sharply. She gets to keep living in the house and has more time to try and reconcile with you. If she finds out about your financial settlement, she might demand money in exchange for a divorce, Trevor explained. What a nightmare, Wes muttered. You don't know the half of it, Winston added. Let me tell you what else I found out. After hearing the news, Wes and Dash were stunned. Wes's face turned white with anger. Dash looked worried, seeing him so upset. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice fearful. I'd like to strangle her, he replied firmly. Seeing Dash's reaction, he quickly reassured her. Don't worry, babe. I'd never do that, but I want to get back at her somehow. She thought for a moment. I know someone who can help us, she said. Wes looked puzzled, then smiled. Gertie? He asked. They both laughed. Let me message her about another installment of the Humiliated hubby saga, Dash suggested. Within seconds, her phone buzzed. She grinned and showed Wes the reply. I want it. I want it. I want it. They quickly got to work, preparing the information Trevor had found for Gertie. After a couple of hours, Wes's phone rang. Dash saw the name on the display and noticed the anger on Wes's face. She went to the bedroom to give him privacy, but could still hear the frustration in his voice. When the call ended, she came back out. It was Marlene, Wes told her. She wants to meet tomorrow at our house to settle some details. She hinted at wanting to reconcile. And you told her you'd get back to her? Dash asked. The question is, how quickly can we get this information to Gertie, and when can she air it? Wes asked. If we can send it today, she might work on it right away. It could mean a late night for us, but it'll be worth it, he added. Let's do it, Dash agreed. Okay, I'll let Gertie know our plans, Wes said. Great, Dash replied. I'll call and tell her I can meet tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully Gertie will have plenty of time. Dash grinned and picked up the phone. Judging by her reaction, Wes didn't need to worry. The next afternoon, Marlene was nervously checking herself in the mirror when Wes arrived in a lift. She was surprised, but realized this could work to her advantage. Worst case, I'll drive him back to his apartment. Best case, he stays the night, she thought to herself. When Wes reached the porch, Marlene was already holding the door open. She tried to kiss him, but he pulled away. Don't rush, she scolded herself. She gestured for him to sit in the living room. Do you have the papers we need to sign? He asked. I do, she replied, spreading them on the coffee table. But before we get into that, I need to apologize. I've made big mistakes and treated you terribly. This whole divorce feels like waking up from a bad dream. I don't know what I was thinking. I was selfish and cruel, and I don't even know why. Oh, all I know is that I wish I could make it up to you. He began to speak, but she continued. The prospect of selling the house made me realize what happened, she said, her voice softening. We had so many happy times here full of hope and love. Now I can't bear to lose that. She leaned forward, a tear glistening in her eye. Wes, is there any way we can get that feeling back? Can't we start over? We don't have to sell the house if you're willing to try. I'd spend the rest of my days making you as happy as you deserve. Wes looked at her coldly. Let me get this straight, Marlene. You want me to forgive you for cheating, forget the restraining order, and forget that you locked me out of my own home? She hesitated. Honey, I know I treated you horribly and did terrible things that hurt you. I can't explain why I did those things. It's like I went temporarily insane, but I've come to my senses. I remember how good we were together. Please, baby, let's not throw away the good with the bad. He stared at her in disbelief. Are you out of your mind? He growled, and she flinched. Let me make this clear. I'm an accountant. I deal with assets and liabilities. And you, Marlene, are a huge liability. The sooner I get rid of you, the happier I'll be. Now, if you'll give me the papers to sign, I'll leave, and hopefully this will be the last time I see you. Shocked, Marlene handed Wes the papers from the real estate agent. As he signed them, she noticed a car idling outside. He signed quickly, stood up, and headed for the door. She desperately searched for a way to salvage their relationship. But before she could say anything, Wes turned and smiled grimly. Have you ever heard of Gossipy Gertie? He asked. She shuddered. I think you should watch her latest show. You'll find it very interesting. With that, he walked out to the waiting car. Everything okay? Dash asked. Wes nodded and smiled. Everything's fine. As they drove away, Marlene rushed to her computer, logged onto YouTube, and found Gertie's gossip channel. She watched nervously as Gertie began her introduction. A banner appeared on the screen. Humiliated hubby. The rest of the story. Hey, gossipers! You all want to know more about the humiliated husband and his not-so-decent wife? Well, now Gertie has the latest chapter for you. Turns out Janica wasn't seeking a divorce because of spousal misuse. She wanted out to have an affair with her lover. She even got her lover to bribe the judge for a protective order to make her husband look bad. Chilling, isn't it? Gertie began. But there's more. This wasn't a passionate affair, it was a scam. Mrs. McAfee has done this to 5 husbands. She'd seduce a sucker, marry him, then divorce him for a richer target. Each time she perfected her scheme. But this time, Gertie's friends, yes, you know who you are, caught wind of it. Mrs. Mack's latest scheme failed. Her candidate for husband number 6 is dealing with a tax audit, and husband number 5, our hero, is heading off into the sunset with someone special, no longer humiliated. Gertie paused for dramatic effect. Oh, and some angry ex-husbands in California want to chat with Mrs. Mavelli. Turns out, she skipped divorce hearings, cleaned out their savings, and left town. So beware, Sacramento men. Mrs. Mavelli is on the prowl for her next sucker. No! Screamed Marlene, slamming her laptop shut. But her phone rang immediately. Realizing it was a friend, she answered. Hi, Marlene. Or should I say Mrs. Mavelli? She threw the phone across the room, screaming. I've got to get out of this town. As Wes and Dash traveled down the I-5 freeway, Wes glanced at Dash. How about we take the 101 along the coast? Sounds scenic and romantic. That sounds perfect, she agreed. He squeezed her hand. Sure. It'll take longer to get to Seattle, but we're in no hurry, just as long as we get there before our funds run out. We'll need to find work once we arrive, she noted. He looked at her oddly. I don't think we need to worry about that, babe. Oh, I never told you about the settlement, did I? He asked. You said it was good, she replied. He blushed. 6.5 million. Her mouth dropped open. What? After taxes, it'll be about half that, he explained. She was still stunned. That's amazing. Why didn't you tell me before? I didn't want you to think I was using the money to win you over, he said. She rolled her eyes. I don't care about the money. My job is to manage social media for clients. Your job is to take care of my needs. Think you can handle that? He smiled cheerfully. I can handle it.